Good morning, everybody. Another round of applause, please, for Mike. So thank you, Mike, for joining us, all the way from County Galway in Ireland, by the way. So is university going to become obsolete with platforms like Alison and the way that AI and other technology is shaping education? What's your take on that?
Well, universities have to change how they work. The idea that people go for 4 years to learn a certain amount of education, and do a certain amount of education, that is wasted time. There's an awful lot of attrition in universities now. People don't learn enough, quickly enough, and in a broad enough thing. So they're charging too much for what they offer. If you're doing a certificate or a diploma or a degree in most colleges around the world, you can learn 80 to 90% of that online. So that is going to become redundant. And universities today, you need to think of what they actually provide. I know that we looked at the Irish universities some years ago, and we looked at their balance sheets, and we looked at what they spent money on. In fact, they spent more money on accommodation, bringing people to the university, than they did on education itself. And my argument to the university presidents is that they're actually in the tourism business, and they're in the social development business. They're not in the learning business. Where you do need universities is obviously if you're teaching a medical doctor, you don't want somebody learning online about how to operate, okay? Or a vet or anything like that. So in that way, so the universities have to redo their businesses, and they have to figure out where they actually are providing unique value. They are not providing unique value in just disseminating knowledge and skills. So they have to get out of that business, and that will be taken over online. Where they do bring in real value is having on-site, the laboratory, or the actual practical experience, or meeting the professor, or meeting in groups, so that there is still a role, but they take up too much time. And yes, we need to, and of course, as I was saying there in my few words, is they don't address enough people. There is a phrase I heard once that Nigeria needs 20 new universities every year for the next 20 years to meet current demand, okay? It's like, so hello, the system we have is not working. And I guess that's the challenge to Africa in general, not just to Nigeria, is to use the opportunity of technology and not to be afraid to do things differently. If everyone was starting around the world to start again, they would do things differently, and Africa has that opportunity.
Okay, great, thank you. So let's talk about Nigeria. 864,000 graduates. And, Nigerians are big learners. That it's not uncommon to have people here with 3 or 4 degrees. So why do you think your platform is so popular? What do people tell you? I know you've met a lot of your graduates here. What do people tell you about the platform and why they're so engaged with it? And also, can you share a success story from here that illuminates the work that you do?
Okay. The first part of that.
Why does Alison?
Yeah. Yeah, why it's popular. Well, there's no question that people in Nigeria like free. Okay, so that's a main thing. I guess the other thing is just about modern learning, is that when people sign up to a particular course in university, they're kind of, once they've paid a certain amount of money, they're stuck to do that course. Whereas in Alison, if actually you're doing a course and you say, you know what, I thought I liked this. I thought I liked psychology or something like that, but I've now studied a bit, and you know what, I'm not so interested. You stop and you start another one, no cost to you. That flexibility is great. And I think that goes to where we're going with learning generally. People are better learners if they're studying what they want to learn. So when we have a limited system, it stunts learning. Whereas if we can study anything that we want to study at any time, at any level, we allow our curiosity to follow us. And I think that that's a trait that I've seen in Nigeria. People like learning here. And people like learning for the sake of learning. They're not just learning it to get the certificate. And I think that long-term, like an innate entrepreneurialism, which is also in Nigeria, will allow Nigeria to be a phenomenal force globally in time.
So learning is obviously one part of the equation, but beyond that is economic empowerment. What is Alison doing, if anything at all, to engage African employers to kind of translate the certifications into kind of beyond the learning and the acquiring to actually empowering them to employing the people?
I guess, so Alison is a platform, and we operate very efficiently. Most of the people in Alison are actually engineers and analysts, right? So we don't have too much time to talk to people. And when we do talk to people, like for instance, we have an agreement with the Department of Labor in America. Again?
Yes,
We're back again, okay. Yeah, so we will talk to the Department of Labor, but we really need to talk in Nigeria to government level. We haven't engaged with government, but let me tell you an insight. So in Nigeria last year, we at Alison provided 2 million hours of free learning in Nigeria. Okay, so on average, if you look at how much that's worth, if you look at, we've done some research, and most researchers would say that it's worth for the government to pay $5 to $10 for completed learning. So that's about 15 to 16 million euros worth of learning that's provided in Nigeria alone. Now, I'd love to bill the Nigerian government for that, so if any of you know who I should send an invoice to, let me know.
I think Obi Asika knows.
Yeah. No, but I'm only joking. But in America, we have 3 times that. So, and then if you value learning at $20 to $25, that's about $150 million of free learning that we've provided in America. But if you look at worldwide, I looked at the figures. So last year we provided 3,103 years of free learning globally. So on an economic basis, that's around $350 million worth of learning. So we're providing that, but no governments are really approaching us because it's hard to work with them, and they usually require long conversations, and we're just too busy getting on with it.
Yeah. So you've said in the past that people here need to be more assertive. What do you mean by that? Are you talking about the government level? Are you talking about kind of individuals? What did you mean by getting more assertive?
Okay, so I really like this question. Let me tell you that at Alison, we are translating all of our courses into 75 languages. We're using AWS, Amazon, so they have a translation tool. Can I ask you, let you think about this. Of the 75 languages that are provided, do you know how many are African? There's Afrikaans and there's Swahili, okay? Just 2 of 75. Okay, so I would ask you, where's Hausa? 60 million people speak Hausa. 40 million people speak Yoruba. And yet Amazon doesn't facilitate this. So what I would say to you is your minister of IT or education should pick up the phone to Amazon and say, hey, if you want to do all of this business in Nigeria, which you do, then add at least 2 of our most popular languages to it. But nobody picks up the phone, okay? And generally speaking, Nigeria is 200 million people. You have half the population of America. Start acting like it, okay? You are a powerful economic nation. And pretend, you have that power. I'll give you another example. Say if you're signing on to TikTok here in Nigeria, do you ever notice when you sign, they say to you, sign up through Google, sign up through Facebook, sign up through LinkedIn. Where's the Nigerian option? Again, your minister has to pick up the phone to whoever, and make a law and says that if you're signing in through a service, at least 2 of the 6 needs to be Nigerian. And you know what? That doesn't cost anyone. That's just a law. I'll give you another, it's slightly tangential. I came here through Air France the other day. I flew from Dublin to Paris. So after I wrote my very fine speech there, I just wanted to relax and listen to music. So there was options for French music. But then I thought I'd like to listen to some Nigerian music. I went to look for it. I couldn't find it. It wasn't there. Again, phone call. Minister for Culture in Nigeria. You pick up the phone to Air France and you say, maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but in 3 years' time, anyone flying into Nigeria needs to have an option to be able to listen to Nigerian TV and that. And what I'm saying is just about being assertive. There is the Italian revolutionary Leon Gabetta used to say that people are on their knees and don't realize that they just have to stand up, right? So I think Nigeria needs to believe in itself and just make these calls and have more confidence because you have the talent to back it up.
Absolutely. So are you bullish on Africa then? It,
Oh, I'm extremely bullish on Africa. I love being in Africa. There's something Irish in Africa. We talked about it earlier. You've been all around Ireland. I guess we do share. We speak English, and that's because we both had the British around our countries for a little too long. Uh, but they're the best of friends today, and that should be the case. I'm very bullish in Africa. You have the numbers. One thing that's really surprising, actually, and us who were raised in the West, is just the size of Africa. You know that the size of the map of the world that we grew up with is completely contorted to make Europe look bigger. And then actually when you look at what calls a Peters map, you just see that Africa is almost half the world. It's huge, right? And Africa needs to be assertive. So I was reading a statistic the other day that in 2030, half of the new workforce, half of the people entering the workforce are going to be African. Making sure that Africa makes the most of itself is not an African challenge, or it's not a Nigerian one alone. It is a challenge for the world. The world needs Africa to step up, become educated, and play its role, because the youth of the world is going to be in Africa. And it's a huge treasure, and that's what makes me really excited.
Absolutely. So you mentioned that, Nigeria and Ireland have obviously had a colonial past with the British. And it took Ireland maybe about 100 years or so to really just kind of erode the influence of the Brits. So, I mean, many of this kind of ex-colonies, for want of a better word, are maybe 50, 60 years into that journey. I mean, do you see a path to accelerated kind of like, erosion of that influence?
Yeah, I see that. So I'm a bit of a history buff, and I do think that when I look at Ireland's history, it took us about 100 years to get confident as a nation. And okay, so Nigeria isn't half of that. But the secret really is in education. Education is so empowering. And let me tell you just a small personal story. My father grew up in the 1930s in Ireland. He went to school with no shoes in cold weather. He left school when he was 12 because he had to go farming with his father. I didn't realize until he passed away a couple of years ago that he could read, but he couldn't write. He left school too early. And yet, his son, I graduated from Harvard in the early 90s, and here I am doing what I do in just one generation. And I say that to every Nigerian family. No matter what your circumstance is, you educate your children or you become educated yourself, you can completely transform your circumstance. So it really goes down to education. Ireland today is one of the wealthiest countries in the world, and it is, and if you travel around, you'll see it. But it was a poor country. It was a very poor country in the 1930s. So don't put poverty as an excuse not to be successful. If you educate yourself, and every one of you individually make the most of what you can do, then you can transform the world. And not just transform Africa, but Africa can transform the world. Education is where you need to focus.
So, Mike, you've spoken about the importance of social impact, and Alison operates as a social enterprise. But at the end of the day, it's still a business. So how do you balance profitability with purpose? What's the model behind that?
Okay, this is a technical question, but let me answer it. I set up Alison with the intention of doing exactly what we're doing today. Actually, when we started off, I didn't have enough money to create a charity around Alison, so I set it up as a private business. We haven't raised money in 15 years. There's a reason why we've never raised money, and that's because most investors want to see profit, whereas once I'm a controlling shareholder, which I am, I focus on social impact. Now, there is lots of Alison employees here today, and you can ask them. We're run absolutely like a business. We are, I don't think there's too much difference between an employee or an engineer in Google and an engineer in Alison. But our people are really driven by social purpose. And yes, they're paid well. They're not paid any less so that they think, oh, I'm going to Alison and I'm going to be paid less just to do a social mission. No, they're paid economic wage. But I think the type of business that Alison is today is something that's going to become more popular around the world, because we need more socially driven businesses. And I think it's possible. And I guess I take a little bit of responsibility and feel a bit of pressure on that to prove that Alison can be successful, and that you can have a for-profit business that's socially driven. And of course, I am dependent on making that happen from people in the room, like people in the room who learn with us. Yeah.
Okay, so one final question. I was just my personal curiosity before I open up to the audience. Why is it called Alison? Is it named after someone special? Or?
Okay, well, that's a common question. I had a company called Advanced Learning, so that's where the A and the L came from. And I knew that I wanted to create a global platform, and I had a vision for what it is today, even before I started. So I tried to get a short name that could be like Alibaba or Google, that could morph into lots of different things. So I came up with Alison, and it was cheap. So then I had to find out who owned Alison. And of course, there was a lovely lady in New York whose husband was an engineer and had booked Alison.com, and she had loads of her cats on it. And I rang her up, and she said, well, I've had 100 people from China asking me for this. Why should I give it to you? So I told her what my vision was, and she says, okay. So we did a deal. She says, okay, for $10,000, I'll sell you the domain, but you have to come to New York, and you have to bring me and my husband, Earl, out to dinner and to a Broadway show. And I did that, and I bought Alison in 2004, that name. And it's worked well, because before we bought it, we just checked it. It has to be roll off people's tongues in every language, so Chinese, Arabic, and we're very happy with it. It works. Yeah.
Fantastic. $10,000 and a Broadway show. That's a bargain. So now I'm going to open up to the audience. We'll take 2 or 3 questions. Please keep your questions brief, no commentary, because we are running out of time, but I want to give you an opportunity to ask Mike a question. So we have one hand over there. Is there someone with a mic that's going to help us to steer this? We have one question over here. Another hand in the middle row, 3rd seat or 4th seat over here. So we'll take 3 questions. I think we'll be able to do that with our time. Do we have our first question? Okay. Is there someone with a mic? You have a question? No. I'll come to you. Is there someone with a mic? I can't. Oh, okay. We have a question. Gentleman, glasses over there in the 5th or 6th row. Over there. Please stand up.
Hear me? Good morning, everyone, and good morning, sir. I really enjoyed your discussion. My question is, what is Alison doing to democratize education for persons with disabilities? Both, physical, it's an online platform, so they don't have to move about, but people with learning and other forms of disabilities, what is Alison doing to ensure that they have access to the hundreds of thousands of materials and courses that they are? And I'm also an Alison graduate, so thank you very much for what you do.
Do you want to take that quickly? Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for being an Alison graduate, and that's delightful to hear. I guess there's a European standard called the EEA standard, and it's actually becoming law this year, where the presentation of the website has to be done in such a way that it is far more accessible for people with disabilities. Okay. And we're in the process of applying the rules for that. There's always a challenge in that the website has to look attractive, because it's a competitive world out there, but at the same time, we're very, very conscious of people with disabilities. So one of our core tenets is all about inclusion. So I can assure you that in everything that we do, we have that in mind. But sometimes there's technical limitations on what we can do. So I won't say that we can redesign. I guess my dream would be that the website is accessible in every way to everyone. We're doing what we can, and I think more than what we have to do.
Fantastic. Gentleman in the middle row over here.
I have the microphone.
Who has a microphone?
Hello, everybody.
Okay.
Yeah. Hello. My name is Jobina. I'm from Edo Innovate. So I wanted to ask if Alison is open to partnerships with my organization for online learners, because what they do is kind of what we do, but our trainings are in person and on site. So I wanted to see if there's a way we can collaborate and they can also offer our learners some of their certifications.
Well, very much open to collaborating, and we do. You know, the learning management systems that I mentioned earlier. We have tens of thousands of companies using them, but there are many NGOs using them as well. And I guess what we think we provide is that we provide the learning to anyone who has a smartphone or an internet access, that you can organize your learning through the LMS, and rather than you investing in content, let us do that. And if you're missing courses and you want them, you tell us, because we can create courses for you very quickly. So absolutely, you know, just talk to me afterwards or just connect with us online. But always open for partnerships, I assure you.
All right, that would be great.
Okay, great. Next question. We have a gentleman here in the middle row. Can we get into the middle row here?
Okay, good morning, sir. Thank you so much for a powerful presentation. So I have a question. You mentioned that you're bullish on Africa. So I like that. So what kind of education is Alison focused on for Africans? Because you talked about education and how it's going to empower. So there are different types of education. Are you talking about tech education? Are you talking about the tertiary education? So please, I would like you to just, touch on that. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, well, thanks for the question. At the moment, Alison focuses on basic workplace education. So even though 5,500 courses seems a lot, there are about 1,000. So what we're trying to do is create full, what we call verticals on every subject. So you have 101, 102, 103. We will do that, and we're doing that in the next couple of years. So our dream and our intention is to make sure that you have access to any type of learning, including tertiary or whatever area. And look, the truth is, this is going to happen anyway, whether Alison does it or not. I guess what our determination is to figure out a business model that allows you to access it for free. Because too much around the world, education is treated as a way to make profit, when actually my view is that it is a public right. I have in my office the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, and it's hanging on my wall for 20 years. Article 26, education shall be free. We're making it happen, and that's our goal. So my answer is, we want to fulfill every requirement that you have, and we will do it. Just give us time. Thank you.
Questions? Oh, Consul General.
All right, thank you. Good morning, everyone. My question to you, thank you. My name is Oladmeji Lawal. I work with SIBA. SIBA is an agency of Nigerian government under the Ministry for Federal Ministry of Art, Culture, and Creative Economy. So my question is this: what do you think, or what would be your advice to the Nigerian government in do better in helping social enterprises in Africa? What do you think African government can do rather to help social enterprises? What do you think we can do better as a government? Thank you.
Okay, I'm not sure I heard all of the question, but just in terms of helping social enterprises in Nigeria, I guess our expertise is really about education and skills development. So there's an awful lot of capacity building in these organizations. Are they organized properly? Do they have proper boards? Do they have proper governance? Are the people who work in these organizations, are they properly trained in everything from accounting to project management to whatever? They can learn these skills. So we can't go out and do the work for them, but we can train them to do whatever job they take on to do it better. So in that way, I see it. And also, every NGO in Nigeria should be using Alison, because it's free. And the courses are there, and it's unlimited users. So why wouldn't you use it as a resource? I would say spend your hard-earned and got money on something else. Use the learning that is there, because resources are hard to come by. But when they're free online, use those and focus on spending on something else.
Great. Consul General, you had a question.
I think this is a very, very important initiative and work you do. Because the thing is, how do we develop sustainable business models? So, for example, we have technical schools in Denmark. We even talked with one of the states last week, and even one of the schools have hundreds of different technical education programs, vocational programs. We build it modular. You do practice. You go to companies. How much can you do virtually? All the things. It's back to talking about what skills levels do you need, for example, if we want to get them back into the European space. So, for example, doing work in Nigeria, but delivering for European companies, as one example. We have technical companies here. It's the private business who is financing it. They work with ICMPD. They work with the Nigerian Board of Technical Education. They try to change the curricula. You know, it's just your platform into that space would make a lot of sense to understand how do we include that, but also what is the business model when you say it has to be free. We know that has to also be incorporated in some kind of a model. So I'm very interested to hear more about that because, you know, education is everything. And if we don't do anything about it, we all know what will happen. Thank you.
Hello. So I am delighted you asked that question, and thank you. I guess my way of looking at it, you said an interesting thing there that, you know, there's a market in Europe for hiring Africans, trained Africans to come to Europe and help our businesses. I would say, well, that's not exactly what Africa wants because you're draining your people out. One thing is, so you talk about all of that expertise that is in Denmark. Governments have this, have expertise all across Europe. My challenge to them is to release the education that they have and make it available to everyone in the world. If you're serious about spreading, because it's a good thing to do, because it raises the boat for everyone in the world, not just the people in Denmark, not just the people in Ireland, not just the people in France. So governments have a huge amount of education. Put it online for free so everyone can resort to it. Yeah.
Can I just specify, I do not mean that people have to go to Europe. They are educated here. People come here. They create jobs here. That's what's happening. Okay. So let me rephrase it, because that's very important to understand. I'm not telling you to do the other way around. But if you have to export more in Nigeria, and you have to hire people who fit those criteria, you need to know that the education and the curriculum fit that, and that's the scope that we're trying to match. But in Nigeria or in another African country, that's the point. So let me be very clear about that. So okay. Thank you.
Okay, point taken. Thanks.
Okay. So one final question before we... Okay, we have a hand up in the middle here. Please stand up.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Akinola Oluwasegun. I work on a radio station. So this is my first time hearing about Alison, actually. So I was going through the courses, and I was wondering if there is going to be a course for the media broadcasting, like radio presentation, TV presentation, acting, culture, and the rest of them. I don't know if Alison is going to do such. That's my question.
Okay. Well, thank you for the question. I think that's an important concept about Alison, is that, yes, the world is full of learners, but the world is full of teachers as well. So on Alison, there is a full publishing unit where you can go on and you can learn how to create your own course. If you create that course to a certain standard, you will be allowed to put it on Alison and make it freely available to everybody. And there is about 400 to 500 publishers on Alison. All of them make money, because when we make money through certificates or advertising or subscription, we share that with the publishers. So not only can you create courses on radio or whatever it is, you can make money by doing so on Alison. So I invite you to do that, and please do that.
All right, that's a sum. I'll do that. Thanks.
Fantastic. Well, I'm creating a storytelling academy, and you might see a partnership with Alison. Watch this space. So,
Hello?
Yes.
So just one final comment. So we have our team here today. I know that there's a lot of Alison graduates here. We're always interested to hear video testimonials and hear a story of empowerment, that you got a job, that you got a promotion, that you started a business, that you got more confident by doing Alison courses. So the team are in the section behind us here. So please come see us, and I'd like to meet as many of you as possible for the rest of the day. So thank you for that.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pavin Stanley. I'm a lawyer and senior HR. So my question this afternoon is, what are the future plans for East Africa? For countries like Rwanda, Tanzania, we believe we have youth who are eager to learn and gain new skills. So what are the future plans you have for East African countries? Thank you.
Well, I guess our plans for East Africa is no different than for Nigeria. I've spent a good bit of time in East Africa. I've been to Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda. There is huge potential there. So we're only a small company at the end of the day. I know we have very large figures, but we're less than 200 people. So for me, I certainly travel there to listen to what the needs are. But I think that the needs for learning are universal, and we're trying to provide a universal solution. That's what we can do efficiently and in a sustainable way. It's very hard for us to focus on any one country in particular, or maybe we can as we get larger. But for now, we just focus on the same solution to create universal solutions for everyone. That's what we're capable of doing today. That's what we're capable of doing well today. But who's to know as we grow globally? Like we would hope, we have 50 million users now. We look forward to getting to 100, and hopefully by 2030 we'll get to 1 billion. So we'll be doing more in Kenya and other places like that by then. Thanks for the question.
Okay, fantastic. And there we must leave it. Please join me in giving a huge round of applause. Please join me in giving a huge round of applause to Mike Feerick.